Hey guys, this is Miss Wiesner, and this is going to be our video lesson on slope and finding slope from a table. But there's one thing I want you to be aware of, and we've been finding slope since we first started when we got back from spring break. When we were trying to determine whether a table made a straight line or made a linear relationship, and we were seeing if the y's went up by the same amount and the x's went up by the same amount, then we found the constant rate of change. Well, linear relationships, remember, have a constant rate of change. That means that they are consistent, and the way the x's go up doesn't affect the way that the y's go up. So, from the beginning, if it's a linear relationship, then the constant rate of change is the slope. So that's something that you are supposed to recognize as part of your 8th grade standard to help you get to Algebra 1, and I'll get to that in a second. But slope basically is the change in y, or the difference in y. Difference means to subtract, so don't forget that, over the change in x. So it's a ratio comparing the change in y to the change in x. Or delta y over delta x. So this is what is the delta, and I actually just kind of gave it to you. But it's a symbol that we use in math, and you'll see a lot. But basically, if you just remember, it's always y over x. Always, always, always going to be y over x if you're looking at the ratio. So delta is the Greek letter for change. So that's why you see that a lot. Change in y over change in x. Now, we were looking at slope from a graph, and we were looking at rise over run. We were still looking at the change in the how the graph changed vertically, or y, as opposed to how it changed horizontally, as in x. And I'll provide you with some extra help on that if you need to. But this is the standard. We're going to go back and forth from function standard to the equations and expressions and inequalities. But it doesn't matter. There's a little bit of a difference in functions, but a lot of it's the same. So understand slope is the constant rate of change. That's part of what you have to learn as an 8th grader. There it is, right there. That's the standard. You have to understand slope is the constant rate of change. So, what is the constant rate of change? It's slope. It's the same. Now, the variable for the slope is always going to be m. Why it's m, I don't know. I've had students try to figure it out. When you look it up, I don't care. I don't know why, to be honest with you. I don't remember if I did. Okay, so what we're going to be doing today is looking at the tables that were it's coming from the same place where we were having to find slope from a graph. And some of you, remember I did 10 of them, and then you had to do the rest of them, which there were 20. And some of you you got rise mixed up with run. So I don't know if that's me not teaching it a way that you understand, or if it's you not paying attention to the video and the screencast. At any rate, I'm going to have to do something, because you've got to know how to find slope from a graph. Now, what they've done here in the table is I just decided to pull the table out and put it into a format where I could write, because I figured you would do a better job, and I could do a better job, hopefully, of teaching it. All they've done is they've taken the ordered pairs, like -4, 3. So that would be an ordered pair that you would plot on a coordinate plane. But instead of doing that, they put it all into a table form. But these are all points that you can plot on a graph. So if you don't believe me on some of this, I can prove to you that it's linear. So this would be the change in y, and this would be the change in x. But unlike before when you had to find all of the changes in the y column and all of them in the x column, and even if one of them didn't match, then the entire thing was wrong. We don't have to worry about that now. We know that these are linear relationships. The reason why I know that is because they're asking you to find the slope. They wouldn't ask you to find the slope if it wasn't a linear relationship. You don't have slope unless it's a very straight line. So I know it's a linear relationship. So in this case, all I have to do is just find two y values and two x values and look at how they change. Before I do that, though, you need to remember that since we're talking about change or difference, you need to remember your subtraction rules. And I'm going to try to help you. Oops. You probably don't see that, but I do. Subtract for negatives, okay? So, so I just decided you can pick any two that you want, but if I pick the first two in the y column, then I need to pick the first two in the x column. So I chose 3 and 1, negative 1, sorry, and then negative 4 and 4. So what I want to do is see what's the difference between 3 and negative 1, and that's positive 4. Now, look down here. Here's a hint. You need to remember that subtraction is adding the opposite. So 3 minus negative 1, 3 minus negative 1 is the same thing as 3 plus 1, which is 4. Okay, and then on this one, you might, and I was thinking about this on a number line, and I thought, oh, it's positive 8. But no, if you think about it, when you're doing subtraction, it's negative 4 minus 4. So negative 4 minus 4 is the same thing as negative 4 plus negative 4. And when you're adding a negative plus a negative, you get negatives. So it's negative 8. So the change in y, or change in y, delta y, is 4. The change in x is negative 8. Reduce that, and then this becomes your answer. Slope is negative 1/2. It doesn't matter if the negative's down here with the 2. You can put it out to the side, you can put it up to the 1. It doesn't matter. It just means that it's a negative. Now, I could graph this for you, but I don't have time, and I could prove to you that it is a negative slope, because remember, if it has a negative slope, the graph or the line will look like this. Okay? From left to right. Ooh, that's terrible. From left to right, it goes down. Okay, that's horrible. Okay, so I'm going to pick two numbers. This is an example. I'm going to pick two numbers, and I want to pick small numbers because I know I'm going to have to be subtracting, and I don't want to have to subtract numbers that are big because I know I already have to do a lot with that anyway. So let's see how this goes. So if you do, let's pick these two. So if I pick the first two of the y column, I have to pick the first two of the x column. So it's 1 minus negative 5. Now, remember it's adding the opposite, so it's the same thing as 1 plus positive 5. So that is 6. Now, over here, you have negative 1 minus 2. Well, it's negative 1 plus negative 2, and that is negative 3. Okay, so, gosh, this is terrible. So, the change in y is 6. The change in x is negative 3. So, let's reduce that or divide it out. So, 6 divided by negative 3 is negative 2. So that is your slope for that one. It's -2. Okay, on this one, I'm going to change it up a little bit. I'm going to choose these two. So 4 minus 4 is 0. And then over here, 4 minus 3 is 1. So if you were to do the change in y, that is 0. And the change in x is 1. Well, what number times 1 gives you 0? That would be 0. So slope is 0. Okay, on this one, I'm just going to use the first two like I had been doing. So we're going to do 4 minus 1, and that gives you 3. Okay, and then 1 minus 4. Now, I need to, oops. I messed up there. Hold on a second. I'm not feeling too great right now. 1 plus -4. So that would be -3. So my change in y is 3, and my change in x is -3. So if you reduce that, it's 1 over -1, which is just plain old -1. Okay, here's another example. Remember, it doesn't matter which ones you pick, so I'm just going to pick whichever I think is going to be easiest. So I'm going to do these two. So remember, you got to do subtraction, so it's -2 minus 1, and then it's -2 plus -1, which is -3. Okay, and then this one is 4 minus 0, which is 4. So my change in y is -3, and my change in x is 4. So my slope is -3/4. Okay, on this one, I want you to try it. You can hit pause and work this out. Just pick any 2 points, and then you can come back and see, check your answer against what I did. And remember, if you pick different x, y's and x's to subtract, it doesn't matter, because it still should come out to be the same thing. So go ahead, hit pause, and then come back and check and see how you did. Okay, so what I did is I'm going to use the first two. So you have, this is so hard to do. So you have -10 minus -6. Then over here you have -6 minus -3. So remember, you have to add the opposite, so it's -10 plus 6, which is -4. And then this is -6 plus 3, which is -3. So do change in y over change in x. So I have -4 over -3, Well, see, I have two negatives, so that's going to make that positive 4/3. So your slope is 4/3. Okay, here's another one I'd like for you to try on your own. So just pick two y values and two x values, and we need to kind of hurry up and get through this. So hit pause and work it out, and then come back and check and see how you did. Okay, so hopefully you are, no matter which ones you picked, your change in y is -1, and your change in x is also -1. So what is -1 divided by -1? It's +1. So your slope is 1. Okay, if you want to work ahead, you can. You can just hit pause and then come back and check your answers. I'm going to move a little bit quicker here. So -1 minus 2 is -1 plus -2, which is -3. -4 minus 2 is -4 plus -2. So my change in y over change in x is, my change in y is -3, and my change in x is -6. Reduce that, and my negatives will cancel out, so it's going to be positive. So slope is +1/2. Okay, this one's a little bit strange, but as you get better at this, you'll actually cut down on a lot of the work that you are doing. So I'm going to pick 2. So I have 2 minus 4, which is 2 plus -4, which is -2. Now, over here I have 0 minus 0, which is 0. So your change in y over the change in x. So the change in y is -2, and then the change in x is 0. But you cannot have 0 on the bottom. There's no number times 0 that will give you -2, so that is undefined. Okay, so anytime you end up with 0 on the bottom, you automatically know that it's an undefined slope. That means it's a vertical line. Okay, and on this one I'm just going to keep doing what I've been doing. -5 minus -13 is the same thing as -5 plus 13, which is 8. And then 3 minus 9 is the same thing as 3 plus -9, which is -6. Ugh. So I have my change in y over your change in x. So I have 8 over -6. So let's reduce that. That will be, let's see, 4/3. And since I have a positive and a negative, the slope is going to be -4/3. Okay, so you'll have some practice problems just like the ones from the graphs, and I hope that you pay attention to this video. I might put it on Edpuzzle and ask you some questions about it. I don't know, I'm running late today, so I might just have to trust you on this one. So, but you got to get your work caught up, all right? So I hope that this made a little bit of sense. Talk to you later. Love you, mean it.